Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am not a Muslim, but I am an Indian. And I don't believe anyone can call himself an Indian who is not secular. For to deny secularism is to deny your Indianness. Unfortunately, as my friend Samadani was just saying to me, माहौल बदल गया है. There has been such a big change in India since I first came to Calicut in 1991, and it was Samadani who translated my English speech into Malayalam. And today, is it necessary to translate my speech? Or all of you understand what I'm saying? Let me begin by invoking the Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister of India says that India has to get out of not only 200 years of British rule, but also out of 1,200 years of slavery. That's his exact words. 1,200 years of slavery. I think that shows that the Prime Minister neither knows his arithmetic nor does he know his history. And it is because he does not know his arithmetic and does not know his history that he makes this absurd claim that India was suffering 1,200 years of slavery before the BJP came 8 years ago to rescue us from this slavery. The fact of the matter is that Muhammad bin Qasim came to northern India in 711 AD. He arrived at Thatta, which is now near Karachi in Pakistan. He sailed up the Indus, defeated Raja Daher at the fort of Bakkar in the middle of the Indus River near Sakkar, and then he went away after 6 months. Meanwhile, Arab traders had been coming to this very coast. Their coming was long before Islam came to Arabia, and it continued after that. And because these Arab traders peacefully brought the message of Islam to Kerala, that it was Kerala that first found itself with mosques and converts to Islam. There has never been any slavery here. It is entirely a myth to claim that the Arab traders were ruling over Kerala. They weren't. They were simply doing trade. They brought their ideas and they took back with them our ideas, and the whole of European civilization is based on the concept of zero, without which there would be no computers, and that zero was invented in India, and it is the Arab traders with Kerala who took that concept of a zero first to the Arabs and then from there to Europe. So it was a two-way trade of ideas, not only of goods. But when Muhammad bin Qasim came in 711, he did come with an army, and that army defeated a small Indian king whom most of you have probably not heard about, Raja Daher. And he went back to Damascus. There he got into some trouble, so the Caliph ordered his execution. And after that, for 185 years, there was no Muslim invasion of India. For 185 years, there was nobody carrying a sword in his hand, who entered our country. That happened only in 997, when Mahmud of Ghazni's father, Sabiuddin, he discovered how he could come into our plains through the Khyber Pass. And his son Mahmud of Ghazni did invade India 17 times, and he did ransack the Somnath temple. But as Nehru points out in his discovery of India, when Mahmud of Ghazni was returning from Somnath via the Rajasthan desert to his homeland, the Rajputs who encountered him on the way defeated him so badly and looted his caravan so much that even Mahmud of Ghazni failed to return to India, and following him for nearly 200 years, there was no Muslim conqueror who came into India. If a conqueror came, it was because an Indian Maharaja invited him to come. There was a quarrel between Raja Jai Singh and his son-in-law, Prithviraj Chauhan, over who should sit on the throne of Delhi. In the first battle, the father-in-law lost, and therefore he asked Muhammad Ghori to come into India to help him defeat his own son-in-law. Muhammad Ghori did that and became the Sultan of Delhi in 1192. So now count. From 712 to 1192 is nearly 500 years. And in those 500 years, the message of the Prophet traveled through many parts of Kerala and into Karnataka and some parts of Tamil Nadu as a result of the traders. And then during the time when there were no Muslim rulers in our country, in what is now Pakistan, the message of the Prophet got spread there. And the essential difference between the message of the Prophet and the lessons they had learnt earlier was the message of Musawwat, or equality. So the idea that all human beings are equal came from Hazrat Muhammad Sahib. We believe, I mean the non-Muslims believe, that there were many lives, and what we did in our past life determined our social position in this life. And so there was a great deal of discrimination against people belonging to the lower castes. And it is these people to whom the message of equality had a special appeal. And that is why many parts of Sindh, Punjab, the Northwest Frontier Province, and Balochistan in Pakistan shifted to Islam. So out of the 1200 years that Mr. Modi is talking about, 500, that is nearly half, were taken up not with the sword, but with the message of equality. And the message of equality cannot be called slavery. Then we had in Delhi a long period when there were sultans of the Muslim religion sitting in the Delhi Darbar, and they were followed in 1526 by the Mughals. So if you take the entire period that the Muslims were ruling in Delhi, it comes to exactly 666 years. From 1192 to 1855, when Bahadur Shah Zafar was deposed and the Mughal Empire came to an end. So why do I say that Mr. Modi needs to have his mathematics corrected? is that when he talks of 1200 years of slavery, he is doubling the figure. Muslim rule in India did not last for 1200 years. It only lasted for 666 years. Exactly from 1192 to 1858. And now I come to history. Muhammad Bahadur Shah Zafar was deposed in, as I was saying, in 1858. 14 years later, the British conducted the first census in India, 1872. And then they discovered that this so-called slavery to which we had been subjected had resulted in only 24% of Indians becoming Muslims. 76% of Indians belong to other religions, mainly the Hindu religion, but also to other religions like Buddhism, Christianity, Sikhism, etc. That is one very important thing for us to remember, because west of India, wherever the Muslims went, they got the whole place converted to Islam. From Iran all the way to Mauritania, either the Muslims were totally victorious or they were totally defeated. And east of India, starting in Bangladesh and going into Malaysia, Indonesia and the South Philippines, everyone became Muslim. But in India alone, after more than 600 years of Muslim rule, only 24% of India's population had converted to Islam. Is that a sign of slavery? Not at all. It is a sign of Indians being willing to listen to messages that come from beyond our country. And it is exactly, this history is exactly the reproduction of Mahatma Gandhi's famous statement that I do not want the windows and doors of my house to be stuffed. I want them to be open so that all the winds of the world can blow around my house. And then he added, but I refuse to be blown off my feet. That is the genius of India, that we are able to encounter Christianity, encounter Judaism, encounter Islam from outside and then from inside. We are able to encounter Buddhism, we are able to encounter Jainism, we are able to encounter Buddhism from outside in Takshila, where Kanishk, the great Buddhist king of India, ruled. We are able to absorb Ashoka, who began as a Hindu, then became a Buddhist, and then he spread the Dharma all over our country. And most of India became Buddhist or Jain from many centuries before Christ, from the time of Ashoka. So what does he mean by 1200 years of slavery? Is he including the slavery under the Jains? Is he including the slavery under the Buddhists? What does he mean when he talks of 1200 years of slavery? If he is talking about the Muslims, he is mathematically wrong by 50%. And if you look at the history of the Muslims in India, I think the most telling document is a letter written by Babur after he had been in India for only 4 years to his son Humayun. In that letter, Babur writes to his son that if you want to continue our empire in India and expand it, you must not interfere in the religion of the local people. And that is why Akbar began increasing the practice of associating non-Muslims with his army as well as his administration. And that continued not only through the years of Muslim rule, but even Shivaji's main army commander was a Muslim. Similarly, when the Marathas went to battle in Panipat, their commander was a Muslim. So it was even the 666 years that Modi calls years of slavery were actually years of Hindu-Muslim cooperation. And cooperatively, together, we ran this country. Some of us were Muslims, others were Hindus, but that never mattered in our country. And it is only now in the 21st century that suddenly religion has begun to matter so much when we are discussing identity. Now I mentioned Abdul Samad Samadani. He's a very old friend of mine. I see nothing foreign about him. He's totally Indian. He's totally Indian in the sense that, of course, he speaks Malayalam. At home, he speaks Malayalam. In Delhi, with his BJP friends, he has to speak in Hindi. So he has learnt Hindi. With his other Muslim League contacts in the north, he has to speak in Urdu. So he picks up Urdu. And then people like me come along and he has to speak to me in English. So he knows all of this. And yet, what is he at heart? He's an Indian. There was a famous song sung by Raj Kapoor in a film many years ago, where he says that my shoes are Japanese, my coat is American, my cap is from Russia, but my heart is from India. That is the India which is called a secular India. It's an India which accepts that there are 28 official languages and 3,000 dialects that are spoken in this country. It's an India that recognizes that every religion in the world that has ever come has its representatives here. Of course, there are Hindus in very large numbers, but there's also 200 million or more Muslims. And they're trying to make 200 million of you into second-class citizens? Certainly not acceptable. Islam is a part and parcel of the Indian civilization. It is impossible to conceive of India without Islam. It is more inconceivable to think of Islam without India. Because if India did not exist, 200 million Muslims would not exist. 200 million. That is almost the entire population from Iran all the way to Egypt. There are not 200 million Indians in the Gulf, Muslims in the Gulf. There are not 200 million in Saudi Arabia. There are not 200 million in Jordan or Turkey. There are not even 200 million in Egypt or Libya or Algiers. The largest concentration of Muslims in the world is on this subcontinent that has unfortunately divided Mother India's Muslim population into three, with 200 million going to Pakistan, 200 million going to Bangladesh, and 200 million remaining here. If that partition had not taken place, India would have 600 million Muslims today. And then do you think this man could talk about 1200 years of slavery? Of course not. The history of India is not a history of slavery. The history of India is a history of people living together. I was posted in Pakistan and we got a cook from Kerala. When we were coming to India on home leave, my wife, who's sitting here, she ordered Ramachandran not to go out of the house and meet Pakistanis. But when we came back, we found that Ramachandran had been going out and had been spending time with his Pakistani friends. So my wife got angry with him and said, "We told you not to go out of the house and meet Pakistanis. Why were you going out of the house?" And Ramachandran said, "I didn't go out to meet Pakistanis. I went out to meet Malayalis." This is the difference in attitude. That Ramachandran knew more about secularism than Samadhani and me combined. He didn't know much about cooking, but he knew the difference between, not the difference, but the possibility of being both a Malayali and being a Muslim. He also understood that you could be a Malayali and a Hindu, and a Malayali and a Christian. So this state of Kerala is the best example of secularism that you can find anywhere in this country. The kind of religious intolerance that we are seeing in northern India is a shame for our country. That is the way in which we will get divided. Babar saw it, Modi has not. Babar saw it, Modi has not. Babar saw it within 4 years of coming to India. Modi has been born here and still doesn't see it. That if you start dividing India on the basis of religion, and then on the basis of language, and then on the basis of ethnicity, there will be no India left. That is why my friend, and I can now call him a friend because he's been dead for more than 30 years, Rajiv Gandhi, said in Parliament on the 5th of May 1989 that India is united because of its secularism. And an India that is not secular perhaps does not deserve to survive. He had the courage to say that. That is why it is extremely important that we remember what Rajiv Gandhi said, what Mahatma Gandhi taught us, what Jawaharlal Nehru told us, what Maulana Azad said, and remain together, whatever our religions, whatever our region, whatever our caste, whatever our language, whatever our dances, whatever our songs, that we remain together. The only way of remaining together is to recognize that our unity is based in diversity. Now, I belong to the smallest minority in India because I am a Tamil Brahmin refugee from Pakistan. How many Tamil Brahmin refugees do you know from Pakistan? And if you will not accept my right to live in India, why should I call myself an Indian? Equally, if you tell someone that because he speaks Tamil, he is only a half Indian, or because he speaks Bengali, that he doesn't really belong here, that only Hindi-speaking Hindus are the real Indians, then that is the way to the destruction of the unity of our country. So secularism above all is about retaining the unity of India. And to retain the unity of India, I have defined in a book that I wrote, secularism in the following words, and with that I conclude my intervention. I said that secularism is the conviction that others who hold beliefs that I don't hold need to be respected. That is the definition. That you don't have to be a Muslim to respect Islam. You can be a Muslim and respect Hinduism. You can be a Hindu and respect Islam. You can be a Sikh and respect Hinduism. You can be a Sikh and respect Islam. You can be a Christian and harvest souls for Christ, but still respect the right of others to hold beliefs that you do not yourself hold. That is secularism, and if that message were to go out from Calicut beach to the whole of this country, India might still be safe. Thank you very much. You've listened to me with great patience. Jai Hind.